be your friend. How do we make this happen? I'd probably, you know, what can I get out of you and what can you get out of me? Because that's really at the end of the day.
Like, so what is that? And so when I explain, well, I create this hybrid. All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
today we're going to talk to you about a few different things. One is friendship, how to build high quality friendships, how to maintain them, because that is extremely important, both personally and professionally. That's what Shane and I did to even get here to this point. And I forget, Shane, did we have anything else we were jumping into?
In this conversation?
Yes.
Yeah, something about business and the 1%, something around there. I'm sure it'll come to fruition.
I think the friendship thing was going to be the business topic, because that I feel like that is extremely important because, it's funny. I've always prided myself on being the guy that wakes up early and has the dialed in routine. And I still do. Don't get me wrong. I actually do enjoy structure and routine and habit and getting up early and being up before all these other people so that I could tell you all that you're lazy and I'm better than you. But at the end of the day,
wow.
It's not true. I think you're all great and I love you equally. But at the end of the day, it was funny because stop making faces, Shane. I mean it. I love our viewers, all of them. We have 29 of them, and I'm intending to keep them all. So essentially, one of the things that I heard that kind of made me laugh and think, why do I even bother to have a routine? Is this guy was saying, millionaires have great habits, but billionaires have great networks. And I was like, so I should stop getting up at 5 a.m. and start going out a lot more. But it's kind of true. Have you ever met somebody who's wildly successful that has no network and just wakes up at 5 a.m. every day and does their same old thing over and over, but has no good connections and contacts? I haven't seen anybody who's at that success level by themselves.
I'm trying my best to get to there by myself. But no, I think it really they kind of coincide, right? The more successful that you become, you kind of get put into a different realm. I mean, even if you try to stay behind the scenes or as quiet as possible, whether your personal life changes or you go to these networking events, or I mean, even just attracting higher end clients, everything changes. It really does. The longer that you've been doing it, the more successful you become.
Right. And I think that there is also a way that you could be very, very intentional about it. And that brings us into today's topic of how do you intentionally build, sustain, and grow friendships? I've come to find that the best way to do business is to some degree, in my opinion, to have a little bit of a friendship there. I think that, and I know Shane, you and I actually do have a little bit of a difference on this stuff, but I've always been a big fan of if you could find a friendship thing first, or the way that you really connect with somebody first, there's usually something that could follow in a business capacity, and it makes it a little bit easier. And I've done pretty much all of my businesses except for my coaching one with friends. One of them didn't turn out super great, but the other ones have been honestly pretty flourishing. So I think that finding a common ground, finding a level of friendship with people is probably the first way you should go about it. Because from that more genuine side of wanting to connect with others, I found for me that has been giving me a lot of great results in life. Now, I don't know about our listeners, and obviously we'll turn it on over to you, Shane. What are your thoughts on connection and friendship building with people?
Well, let's just keep it as far as friendships first, and then I'll go into business because
Sure.
I think they're two different categories. Actually, I'll start with this. Vin and I met at a dinner, and if you've been watching our podcast, you know that it was only about a little over a year and a half ago. Which happy 18-month anniversary.
It's our bro anniversary. What?
Actually, I think it was a little less than that, but it's fine. Anyways, so we met at a dinner at one of our mutual business coaches who was hosting an event, and It was literally just what can I get out of Vin and what can Vin get out of me? Just a regular business mindset, as much as Vin probably will not admit it. That's really how it is. And that's the mindset you have to really go to these things. But let's not talk about that.
I will not admit it.
So, well, even if you're not going to admit it, that's what my intentions were, and that's what I
Yep.
would do at all these. Is I would make a bunch of connections. I'd jump on Zoom. I'd essentially tell them an overview about me and the business, see if there's any interest there, and go from there. And vice versa. I've actually met a couple of people that I still utilize their services because it was beneficial to me. However, if I was generally interested about them, or I loved what they do, I'd set up a follow up call. And that's exactly what I did with Vin. I didn't want to utilize his services, but I loved him as a person. And I'm like, okay, I kind of want to hear more from him. So I said, let's schedule monthly talks. And those monthly talks turned into biweekly. And those biweeklies turned into weekly. And then it turned into me utilizing his services for my team. And now it's just a fruitful, business and personal relationship. So, and that just all turned from me going to one dinner that I actually flew to a different state for. The rest is history. Now, friendships are very important. I personally don't have a lot of close friends, I would say, just because we grew apart. We have different things that, goals and aspirations and different responsibilities, which that's everybody, right? The older you get, the more your lives either grow apart or grow together. And some of my friends, that's just how it is. So I think specifically as an entrepreneur, when you work at home, it's very important to go out, meet connections. One, for business, but two, to actually stay sane and meet like minded individuals who want to reach the same goals as you do, if not more.
So I like everything you said. I will say, my thing is when I go out, I like to connect with people just to learn about them. And if there's something there, I think it will naturally develop. So, funny enough, I remember our first conversation. Shane hopped on and he said, I'm just going to be straight up with you. I already have a coach and I'm not looking for another one.
Yep,
And
that's
I
me.
said, that's fine, man. I just want to get to know you. That's why we're here.
That is
And I meant that.
definitely.
I did. And it's funny because I remember like we both kind of opted in for that monthly call. I remember I was telling you like I have a friend, his name is Eugene, because he was actually the first person I started doing this with, where I really just enjoyed meeting him and I really enjoyed connecting with him, but he lives in Cali. So him and I scheduled a standing recurring monthly call. And I was like, dude, I would love to get to know you more. Are you down for something like that? And you're like, yeah, let's go. Like, why don't we do a monthly call together? And so like you kind of initiated, I put it out, and I think that there's one thing that's super important that people typically overlook is just kind of genuine transparency when hopping on these calls. And this whole conversation today was actually sparked by a conversation I was having with my girlfriend because I was on a call with my good friend Nick. And Nick right now lives in Colombia, but he's between Florida and Colombia and China. And I mean, he travels all over the world. He's a speaker and he's always out and busy. And him and I, we still make time for almost weekly check-in calls to just like, hey, what's up in life? Like, what you been up to? And like holding each other accountable to being better men and continuing on our missions of being leaders that want to serve and support the world. And she goes, I really love how much you and Nick have grown, this friendship. She said, I wish I had somebody like that in my life. And I said, I'm sure you do. Who's somebody that's in your life that you would love to be closer with? And she said, oh, this girl Amy that I went on the retreat with, I really loved her energy. I said, okay, well, it's really simple. If you want to be her friend, just tell her that. And she's like, well, I can't do that. Well, what if like what if that makes her feel awkward, or what if I put her in an uncomfortable situation or whatever? I'm like, so what? It would only be uncomfortable for them because they're not open to receiving your friendship. I mean, think about it, right? Unless the person that you're talking to really, really sucks, why wouldn't you want to receive their friendship? That would mean that there's something more wrong with you. Like, I have this person who wants to love on me and connect with me and be a good friend. Like, I don't, that's weird. I don't want that in my life. That's strange. Like, How many people are really going to feel that way? And so I helped my girl. I said, listen, just reach out to her. And there's this great thing called the friendship formula. I said, and this is what all you have to do if you really want to build a good quality friendship. Identify somebody you'd like to be close with. Then start utilizing the friendship formula, which is this three-part thing, which is time, frequency, and intensity. So time is duration, frequency is like how often are you doing that duration, and then intensity is like how strong is the engagement when you're in it, how much emotion is in there, how much connection is in there, how powerful is that experience. And so you can really build and grow friendships quickly if you implement those three. And you could also build great bonds and really connect deeply with a lot of people. Now, the biggest part that I think people, aside from that, overlook is just that genuine piece. I can't fully remember all of the details of Shane and I's first phone call, but I remember to some degree I was just saying, like, Shane, I really loved your energy. I think you're a really cool guy. I really enjoyed this phone call, and I would love to just connect with you more and build a friendship and see where it goes. And most people will never, ever, ever say that for whatever reason. So for me, I've learned if you just honestly set your intention and be direct with people, they either welcome it or they basically decide for you and pull away. And so I've come to find that if you really want to grow a friendship or just build one in general, just tell the person, I'd like to be your friend. How can we make that happen? Would you be open to this? Would this be cool with you? Would you want to connect more? Would you want to do this? Would you want to do that? I don't know. Shane, you have your own methodologies, of course. I don't know. I don't know how many new friends you make or how how often you're out there making friends. But what's the thing for you when you're thinking of could this person possibly become a friend or not? I mean, what's the thing for you? How do you determine that, and then how do you go about like building that? Because I don't know if everybody's going to be as direct to me and be like, I want to be your friend. Let's start having those monthly calls. What do you think?
No, and I think that's why, because you're a coach and a therapist, and you generally like human beings. And I'm not saying that I don't, but you'd be
Yeah,
shocked with how much people don't like change, right? And I think especially nowadays they're just not comfortable with change. And even your girlfriend saying that, that's change. It's a fear of rejection. It's well, what if this, what if that, right? People don't like that because it's the unknown. So I think you and I, specifically as entrepreneurs, we like to dive into that pool of the unknown. Now, on a separate note, strictly talking about friendship, my
yeah,
son is 3, and we're now being introduced to parents of other kids who are 3 years old, and some of them are not the best, and some of them connect more. I had an interaction. I clearly like football, and I am an entrepreneur, so I can relate on those things as well as a couple other things. I was talking with another dad who was an interior designer, and he enjoyed watching tennis. We talked about the weather for about 5 minutes, and that was about it. It's hard to make a connection when there's no common grounds.
mm,
And I think that's fine. It's okay that there is yeses and nos. You don't have to make friends with everybody,
mm,
right? I knew off the bat that this wasn't going to go anywhere, so we talked for a couple of minutes, and then we both went our separate ways. So I think that's important, especially when you're an adult. You don't have to have friends. You don't have to hang out with people that you don't like. You get to be picky and choosy, but it's okay to put yourself out there. And I think that's the big thing here is, to be uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, or to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. I don't know if I would be aggressive enough and say, I want to be your friend. How do we make this happen? I'd probably, you know, I'd probably ask the guy if he wanted to go get a beer sometime, or if he wanted to hang out or something like that. Which I guess is the same thing without actually calling it for what it is.
yeah.
So yeah, it's important. It's nice to be friendly, and however, there's got to be one person that's going to ask for the number, ask for the date, even if it's a mandate.
The mandate is you're mandated to hang out with me. I think it's you brought up a great point too. People don't always search for common ground, but and this is from the psychological realm speaking, people love their favorite topic, themselves. if you feel that you struggle, so for any of you out there that are listening and maybe you don't have a lot of friends, or maybe you can't stand your current friends, and you want to go find some new ones, let me just give you the easiest hack, the psychological hack to actually build good friendships. And you'll probably have done seemingly almost nothing, and people will just adore you and love you at all times. Would you listeners love that? Yes, of course we would. Great. Thank you for answering. So here's the tactics. People love talking about themselves. However, you can actually go deep with people because the average person would rather have a deeper question asked of them, something that can evoke emotion, than general topics. Now, it's funny because I've noticed a lot of people are trained to think the opposite. Don't go deep. People don't want to be asked a depth question. People don't want to, have a question that could really spur an emotion. Let's just weather and where do you live and what do you do for work? And those questions aren't bad, but they will never actually build a connection where people will walk away and be like, wow, I would love to hang out with Vin again, or wow, that felt cool to meet Shane. Like, I want to talk to him more. You're always going to be that person that you're going to have to initiate 99% of the time, be like, hey, can I be your friend? And they'll be like, yeah, sure, maybe. And maybe you get a call back or maybe not. But if you want, the hack is ask people questions that challenge them in a way that makes them go deeper than they anticipated. So you could take a very average run of the mill question like, hey, where do you live? And then you could turn it into, once they answer, what do you love most about the neighborhood? Or what made you want to move there? All of a sudden that question has such a level of depth that now as the person is talking, they're starting to feel emotional and they're starting to feel connected to you, whether they've realized it or not, because you were the one that helped them inspire that emotion just by asking them a deeper question. These are emotional, they're not manipulative, but these are things that will spur an emotion in someone and bring them into another level of connection. So if you're ever really struggling to figure out how to connect with people, ask them about themselves, challenge them with a little bit of depth, and then you could also connect too by throwing out a similar, and oh man, I hate when people do this and it derails the conversation. Throw out a similar story. Don't talk about some other random crap. Like if they're like, oh, you know what I love most about my neighborhood is X, Y, and Z. You go, yeah, it's really cool. Like I remember this time I was out on a kayak and what? Like, what are you doing? So I think there's also a little bit of this importance of having an ability or an ideology or a desire to connect with others. Funny enough, research has shown that people prefer and people like having the more in-depth questions asked to them because they feel something. So that's one thing you could do. The other thing is, like Shane said, finding common ground. If you're struggling to make friends, think about where you go all the time. Do you go to the gym? Strike up a conversation in the gym. I used to have too many friends in the gym to the point that a workout that could take me 35 to 40 minutes would take me 2.5 hours because too many people were talking to me. And I was a personal trainer at the gym, so that also always made it a little easier. But if I wasn't a personal trainer, here's what I would do at the gym. I would typically just like, I need a machine that somebody's on. I would ask them to work in with them. And then I would always rack and unrack the weights with them. I would always help them put their weight back on and take the weight off. And then they started doing the same thing. And then you see, because there's that desire to help one another, you just genuinely maybe ask a question. Oh, hey man, thanks a lot. How long you been working out here? Oh, dude, yeah, cool. Me too. Oh, what do you like about the gym? And then all of a sudden, now I have a new friend. Oh, dude, great set. Listen, I'm done on the machine. I'll catch you later. Now every time that person walks in, a head nod, a hello, dude, how's your day? And then all of a sudden, it spirals from there. So if you find common ground, find ways to be supportive of the other person, inspire emotions, all of a sudden you're building these powerful friendships that you don't even realize. And there's just so many different ways to do it. So I'm really excited for all of you listeners to go out there and make some really high caliber friends. I mean, or you could, do the Shane approach. I would love to grab a beer with you. Maybe we could see who could chug the fastest. Want to smoke a cigar? We could see who could smoke it quick. I don't know. Shane, tell me how that stuff works. I don't really do it.
I am vanilla when it comes to something like that, as far as my general responses and approaches. But it's definitely not. Let's see who can chug a beer the fastest and smoke the cigars the fastest. Um, it's funny that what you were saying, it just sounded like you were picking guys up at the gym. I mean, it's kind of similar if you think about it, right? Because I was referencing back when I was single 13 and a half years ago, before, internet dating was popular. It was a thing, but before it was popular, I've never utilized online dating. And I picked my wife up at a bar, right? By going there and, having some sort of common ground about something to talk about. And right now she's my best friend. So I think it's really goes
Yeah.
both ways. It's the confidence of just actually going there and wanting to spark up a conversation. And guess what? If it doesn't work, you get shut down, then you go on to the next one. It wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
So I think it's really easy to make friends, the right friends, the wrong friends. I guess that's really up to you. But yeah, I would take Vin's advice if you want to pick guys up at gyms, or we can go the more vanilla approach like I do and chug beers and smoke cigars the fastest, or whatever Vin's saying on that one. But anyways, if you want to make an effort, that's really all that's needed, right? Somebody, if you want to make an effort, and I'm seeing that you're making an effort, and I want to reciprocate, that's what a friendship is.
And I think that there's not enough people out there that really give that shot. Like, don't be afraid to just keep the focus on the other person, because eventually, and I think this is a fear that some people have, is that they won't get to talk about themselves at all. Because remember, right, we're our most interesting topics. So it actually takes us conscious effort for you to build up the desire to really learn about other people. Like, back when I used to date, I could tell you I enjoyed dating, but I didn't enjoy dating because it was like, oh, I want to just meet all these different women and do whatever. I actually enjoyed dating because it was exciting for me to always learn something about new people. Like, I would date this girl and then I would get to learn about her and like why she thinks the way she does, or what her life's about, or some stories or experiences she's had. And I could hear that for the first time and I'd find that really, really cool. And then I go meet another girl and another girl and another girl, and same thing. And I learned so many different things, and I met so many different women that were doing so many different intriguing things to me. And I found dating to be very fun when some people find it monotonous. But I think people find things like that monotonous because they don't want to do that. They're like, oh, I just tell my same story over and over and over. It's like, so stop telling your story and start asking about their stories and start getting to know them and start getting curious about them. And I guarantee your dates will go better and they'll have more fun with you and you'll probably have more fun too. So I think that when we could take the focus off of ourselves and just dig into common ground, or even look for common ground, I think you could have a lot more fun with it. So we've talked about the personal side of building a friendship. Let's jump into, this is Shane's favorite side, and he'll probably do a little more talking here. Let's jump into the business side. So, how do we go from being that millionaire to billionaire? What do you think about building and developing these business relationships?
So business relationships is not really too far off from the personal side, but it really is, and this is what I love talking about because it's so true when it's a business element. It's what can I get out of you and what can you get out of me? Because that's really at the end of the day, when a business owner, that's all they care about is profitability at some point, whether it's money or it's a service or something around those lines. I'm going to get something out of you. So when you have that mentality and you know what to expect, that's the kind of same like-mindedness that I come in with as well.
I
Now,
got a good question. Wait, pause. I got a question because you spurred a question in me.
sure.
So, how do you, without just talking about yourself and being so self absorbed that the person doesn't even want to do business with you, how do you have a conversation in a way that you present so much value about your thing, what you do and how you do it, that it's not you just talking about yourself, that it genuinely twists their interest into what it is that you have to offer?
That's a very easy answer. But let me start out by saying Vin knows me enough where I don't like talking about myself. That's
Yes,
the
it's true.
that's the farthest from me that you're going to get. However, and now I get to answer this question: what do people really want? They want to ask more questions, and that's exactly what I want. So when you give them something to chew on and something that's exciting, something that I want to know more, what is the general common response?
Hmm.
Tell me more about that. I'm generally interested. No one wants to hear 5 minutes of somebody rambling about how awesome they are, how successful they are. Like, that's not the approach. The approach is, so Shane, what do you do? I help business owners like you offset their day to day tasks by getting them a virtual assistant so they could focus on their business and not in their business. It's a nice elevator pitch, right? Tony Robbins always preaches to something like that. When you keep it open ended, it's, well, what is that? Tell me more about that. How do you do that? And now I answer again short questions and get them more intrigued. And the next thing you know, I'm asking about them. So, what do you do? Oh, I do this and this. How long you been doing that? Tell me about this. That sounds phenomenal.
Hmm.
The best business owners, if or the best salesmen, excuse me, make a sale by them coming up with the idea that hiring you is the best thing that they've ever done in their entire life. And if
Hmm.
you can figure out how to do that, which I'm getting better at, you'll do great things. So, business relationships, I like to keep things casual to a small degree, and then I jump right into it. I don't like to mess around or anything like that, which is exactly how it sounded like when Vin and I first met. I'm very blunt. I'm very upfront. This is what I am. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm not looking for. And then, shockingly, somehow Vin implanted his services in me, and now I still utilize him for my directors. So
It's all about the long game.
that's why I'm saying Vin did a great job into implanting that. Even without the friendship aspect, he's that good where it's I wanted to see where this was going to get me, and still a client.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. I mean, I utilize your VAs, and I've learned to even become a better leader with them too, because they are just like a regular employee, and you really do have to be on top of them and give them ways to track. And it's helped me expand as an entrepreneur as well, because on in the future when I do have probable actual, I don't know, physical employees and can't just use VAs for everything, it'll actually have already taught me the skills on how to manage them. So, same here. I've been using your VAs for actually about a year now, year and some change, I think. So
Mm.
it's been a great experience. Can't complain, and that's why I always recommend everybody go use the VA group. But enough pitching out business. You had said something that I think was really important actually, and now a moment has slightly passed in my mind, but I'm trying to bring it back up. You were talking about how building building the business relationships go, like with trying to get something out of somebody and figuring out how you can best utilize them. And I remember there was a thought that was running through my mind as to, one of the best ways to get somebody interested, get them to ask questions, is to create a pattern interrupt. One thing that I've learned about sales, marketing, and even that, like if we're talking building a business relationship, is having a very unique value prop, because people will do a few things. One, they will categorize you based on what title they hear, based on what they know. Two, if they don't have a reference for prices, they will compare you to something that you do have a reference for prices as. So, like, one of the biggest key questions that I ask a lot of prospective clients, for instance, is like, have you invested in yourself before? Because if they have, I know they probably won't see my coaching price as outrageous. If they've never done any type of investment in themselves, the idea of my coaching price is going to drive them through a wall because they cannot comprehend it at all, because they've never done any type of investment. And their view is probably like, go see a therapist and pay them $15 a session, because that's like the average thing. So those are two big things that I've come to learn about building relationships, is being sure to structure them the right way and being sure that you're not being categorized. One of the biggest things I've done to get out of the box is I stopped calling myself a therapist and I've stopped calling myself a life coach, because people have views of both of those. A therapist is the view is you're just going to sit there in an office and vent about your feelings for an hour, and that's useless, especially to entrepreneurs. There's no value in there. And then the life coach, Shane, what you got going on over there, buddy?
Gosh, that's so true. I've heard the same thing. So
Yeah. So and that's the thing that I've seen is a lot of resistance. I've always wanted to work, or I shouldn't say I've always wanted to, but I learned once I started working with entrepreneurs that I wanted to work more with them. And every time I said that I was a therapist, it became hard for me to reel them in because they're like, listen, I've been to therapy, like I know it's not going to help and blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, fine, like, well, we're not doing that, don't worry about it.
Right.
So I learned very quickly to get away from the therapy title. But then you get to the life coach title, and now it's even worse because you'll be out at an event and someone's like, oh, what are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm a life coach. And like, yeah. And then they just walk away because everyone's a life coach,
Right.
and life coaches are mostly vultures. They really are. Most life coaches are never going to make more than $30,000 to $40,000 a year in their lifetime, and they're always hungry for clients because barely any of them make a full-time income to sustain themselves off it.
It's
That's
it,
factually proven through the statistics, not even my opinion.
right. It's too abstract of a title too.
Right. Because what is life?
That's my
So I've started to realize there's so many stigmas around titles. And one of the things that I did to start generating interest was make my own damn title. And one client actually really inspired it within me because he said, hey, did you ever see that show Billions? I'm like, no. He goes, well, you're my Wendy. I was like, I don't know what Billions is, man. And he goes, here, take my Showtime password. He gave me his Showtime account. He's like, go watch Billions and then come back next session and we'll talk about it. I was like, okay. So I go watch Billions, and Billions is essentially, for those of you who've never seen it, it's this show about this billionaire. His name is Axelrod or Axe, and is actually based off of a true story. They made this character in the whole show. So they obviously dramatized it and all that. But you have this guy, Axe, who's a billionaire, and then he has this mental performance coach in the hedge fund that makes all of his employees, all of the traders, just absolute killers. And she's a doctor, she's a psychologist, and she basically does high level therapy and coaching with them. And they call her the mental performance coach. She is this firm's secret weapon. Like, they attribute their success to her, and he wouldn't be who he is without her. And she knows everything about him, and like that's his Wendy. And so it was very funny. I got really into it. I thought it was a great series, and so I came back next session. My client was like, "Did you watch Billions?" I was like, "You're my Axe." He goes, "You're my Wendy." And so it was interesting though because I realized like, wow, this is a really cool title, and it's a really powerful title, at least the way the show portrays it. So I started calling myself a mental performance coach. And because it's not really a common title, and there are actual mental performance coaches out there, it's just not a very common title. And so because of that, every time I tell someone now I'm a mental performance coach, like, what? What's a mental performance coach? What does that do? Like, so what is that? And so when I explain, well, I create this hybrid of therapy, mentoring, and coaching in one service, I've really created this unique methodology that will help you break through problems or limiting beliefs you might have been struggling with for 20 years in a few months. Like, holy crap, that's interesting. How do you do that? And so I've found a way to break out of multiple stigmas at once by literally just creating a title that's more suitable to what I do and drives more curiosity, because the biggest thing in creating relationships isn't just connection and time, intensity, duration, frequency, all those things I said before. Those are the biggest key factors. But another part is a little bit of curiosity. And so, especially in business, if you can find ways to get people curious, you could start opening a lot more doors.
I like that mental performance coach. I'm gonna start calling you Vindy.
Yes.
Yeah, way better than Wendy. At least I'm gonna call you Vindy. Um, anyways, I think this was a really good topic. I think the last couple of them have actually been phenomenal here. As we wrap up, and I'm not usually the best here at wrapping things up because I'm nice, quick, and blunt. So I'll have Vin kind of catch it up. But I just wanted to say thanks. We've been getting a lot of great feedback on a couple of our socials. We are on TikTok. We are on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We're pretty much everywhere. So we appreciate all the follows that we've gotten, all the comments, the messages. We do this because we have fun and we really want to show our love and support for what we believe the 1% is. I'm glad that you guys are liking it as well. Yeah, but anything else you want to say?
No, that's it, guys. We really do this because we have a heart of service. That's why I'm a coach. Shane is helping people with VAs because he also has a heart of service. He wants people to get their time back. He knows how important it is, especially as he's such a family man himself. So, this is one of the biggest and best ways that I think we could try and support you guys. And we really do hope you get a ton of value out of it. So, all of your support means the world to us. We do it because we love it, but we also love to hear from you guys. We also do it because we believe in what we're doing and we're hoping that it inspires, impacts, and helps you too. So please do us the massive, ginormous favor. It doesn't cost anything to support a friend's business. Sometimes it is as simple as rating, liking, and sharing and commenting. And you could do all of that for us here, and we would be very grateful for it. So please continue, hit that smash that subscribe, like button. Tell a friend, tell two friends, tell them to tell two friends, and then so on and so forth. And I think that's how we get a million people. But join us next time on another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.